Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a really fascinating corner of the spirits world. We're talking about independent bottlers, and specifically the intriguing range from Little Brown Dog Spirits up in Scotland.
Yeah, that's right. We've looked at whisky.dk, Little Brown Dog's own materials, some background info, really trying to get a handle on what makes them tick. The goal isn't just to list bottles, but to unpack their whole philosophy, that traditionally unconventional idea they have.
Okay, right. So just quickly, for anyone maybe less familiar with an independent bottler, what exactly are they doing? They're kind of like spirit curators, aren't they? They don't have their own big distillery running day in, day out.
Exactly. They go out and find specific casks, whiskey, sometimes other spirits too, from different producers, and then they bottle those casks under their own brand, their own label. It's a great way to find really unique stuff, sometimes things you wouldn't otherwise see.
Hidden gems, potentially.
Yeah, definitely. And Little Brown Dog Spirits, they're based in Aberdeenshire, Scotland, and they've certainly carved out a niche. That motto, traditionally unconventional since 2018, it definitely catches your attention.
It does.
And what's interesting is they aren't just about whiskey. They're doing gin, even rum. Shows a real sort of broader passion for distilling.
Absolutely. And just looking at what's listed on whiskey.dk, the range is, well, it's quite something. You've got single cask whiskeys, sure, but also blended malts and even a Calvados, which is, French apple brandy.
Yeah, straight away that tells you they've got an open mind. They're willing to look beyond the usual Scottish whiskey borders.
So where does the name come from? Little Brown Dog, it sounds quite personal.
It really is. The company kicked off in 2018, and the name is actually a tribute. It's from co-founder Andrew's dog, his companion, nicknamed the Little Brown Dog. Apparently she went everywhere with him, even distillery visits.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Sadly, she passed in 2022, but the name keeps her memory alive. And now they've got two more Little Brown Dogs, Winnie and Petey, as part of the team.
That gives the whole thing a really nice sort of heartfelt grounding, doesn't it?
It does. It makes them feel more, human.
And that motto, traditionally unconventional, it feels like it means something. Like they respect the old ways, the craft.
But they also want to experiment, right? Put their own spin on things.
Exactly.
Their website actually says something like, our respect for the distiller's craft is only matched by our hunger to create the perfect spirit.
Okay.
So it suggests they're working with the original spirit, trying to elevate it, not just repackage it.
And they seem really open about how they do things. Transparency seems key.
Oh, absolutely. They publish their methods. They tell you where the ingredients come from. For their gin, the Aberdeenshire Forge gin, they even geotag the locations where they find the botanicals.
Wow, geotagging.
Oh,
That's specific.
It is. And that kind of openness, well, it's what people want now, isn't it? You want to know what's in your glass, and they give you that detail, cuts through the marketing noise, builds trust.
Right. Okay, let's dive into the whiskey then. The single casks seem like a big focus for them.
They are, and their philosophy seems to be, look, if we're bottling a single cask, it has to be genuinely special. Not just good, but, as they say, better than good. It needs a distinct personality.
And a balance, presumably, between the original spirit and the wood influence.
Exactly. It needs that harmony. And looking at the examples in whisky.dk, you really see that variety. Take the Glen Elgin 13-year-old. Distilled 2012, matured in an Oloroso hogshead.
Okay, Oloroso hogshead, so sherry influence. Hogshead is smaller than a butt, right?
Yeah, smaller than a butt, bigger than a barrel. And Oloroso means rich, nutty, dried fruit notes, usually. It's bottled at cask strength, 58.2%. And the notes mention dark chocolate, prunes, burnt orange, nuts. Classic sherry profile.
Sounds delicious. And quite traditional for a Glen Elgin in some ways.
It is. But then you look at the Dailuain 16-year-old. Distilled 2009.
Dailuain, that's Speyside. Usually quite fruity, maybe a bit weighty.
Typically, yes. But this one spent its time in an ex-Islay refill hogshead.
Ex-Islay. So, peat, smoke.
Exactly. At 55.9% cask strength, it's described as having the surprising smoky character. It really shows they're not afraid to, mix things up, challenge your expectations of a distillery.
That's really interesting. How much smoke, I wonder? Subtle or?
The notes suggest it's noticeable. A great example of cask influence.
Then you've got something completely different. A Strathclyde 30-year-old single grain.
Right, from 1994. Matured in a refill sherry butt, so a larger cask this time. And the ABV is lower, 43.2%. The notes suggest dried fruit, burnt sugar, vanilla. Probably quite elegant.
It's good they're highlighting single grains too. They can be amazing but often get overlooked.
Definitely. And they also have a North British 32-year-old. This one's a small batch single grain. From 1992, a mix of 5 refill bourbon barrels, bottled at 44.2%, described as elegant and complex.
So exploring both sherry and bourbon influence on aged grain.
Nice. And the variety just keeps coming. Look at the Highland Park 2014.
Okay, Highland Park, Orkney. Usually some peat, some heather, maybe sherry.
Usually. But this one was finished in a red wine barrique, bottled really recently, 2024.
Red wine finish. Interesting.
And it's a high ABV, 60.1%. Notes talk about chopped dates, Dunnage warehouse, fresh fig, candied citrus, and get this, funky smoke.
Funky smoke. What does that even mean? Intriguing, though. That red wine cask really doing something different.
That sounds like it. Then there's a Royal Brackla 2011, 13 years old, sherry hogshead again, cask strength 57.4%. This one's described as a fruity spice bomb, Jamaican ginger cake, medjool dates, pipe tobacco.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, and there's a quirky story about the label color too. Apparently the yellow matches a wood carving one of the founders bought.
Huh. That's brilliant. That personal touch again.
Totally. And they're not scared of less common finishes either, like the Glentower's 2013.
Glentower's, another spice cider. What's the twist here?
Finished in a Pinot de Charente barrique.
Pinot de Charente. That's the French fortified wine, right? Grape juice and cognac.
That's the one. So cask strength, 58.9%, and the notes are apricot marmalade, peach cobbler, white tea. Sounds almost like dessert.
Wow, that's unusual. You really have to wonder what sweetness and fruit that cask brought.
Absolutely. And then a Glenwyvis 2019, matured in a Madeira cask.
Glenwyvis is a newer distillery, isn't it? And Madeira finish. Interesting. First one for them.
Apparently so, yeah. The distillery's first Madeira cask release. Madeira wine gives those nutty, caramelized notes. This is 56.5% ABV. Notes mention apricot, sidra like cider pecan nuts, strawberry tart, even Ethiopian coffee beans.
Goodness, that sounds complex. A lot going on there.
Definitely a unique one. But they haven't forgotten Islay fans. There's a Kale Isla 2014.
Okay, classic Islay. Peat smoke, coastal notes.
You got it.
Yeah.
Matured in a refill Oloroso sherry hogshead, 56.3% ABV. Notes mention sea air, distant bonfire, but also Lapsang Souchong tea and smoked figs. So peat meets sherry.
And the label has a blue lobster. Nice touch.
Yeah, reflecting that coastal character.
It's good to see lowlands represented, too. The Glasgow Distillery 2017.
Yes. Matured in an Oloroso hogshead, 55.7% ABV. And the label celebrates the Barrowland Ballroom.
The music venue. Cool connection. Ties the whiskey to the city's culture.
Exactly. And there's also a Tamnavalin 2010, finished in a port pipe.
Port finish, another classic pairing with scotch. Dark fruits, spice.
That's the expectation. This one's 52.4% ABV, so showing that more traditional finishing style too.
Okay, and this last single cask mentioned is slightly mysterious. The Macallan Unnamed 2010.
Right. So the distillery name isn't obvious on the label, but the description points to Macallan. It's from 2010, matured in a first fill PX sherry cask.
First fill PX. Wow, that must be incredibly rich and sweet. Yeah. Pedro Ximénez sherry is like liquid dessert.
Pretty much. And its cask strength, 57.9%. It's part of their LBD extra value range.
Ah, so maybe a way to get that famous Speyside spirit heavily sherried without the official Macallan price tag.
That seems to be the idea. Clever positioning.
But it's not all about single casks, is it? They do blends too.
Right. They have their wee mongrel range, which includes blends and even rums.
Let's touch on the blended scotch. There's the Drickett Doug 2011, 12 years old.
Yeah, matured in refill sherry butts, bottled at a lower 43.6% ABV.
So refill casks, lower strength. Is this maybe designed to be a bit softer, more approachable compared to the cask strength monsters?
That would make sense. Likely showcasing the art of blending itself, creating a balanced, easy drinking profile.
And then there's this Ailsabay Dalrymple 2012, an 11-year-old teaspooned blended malt. What's that about?
Ah, teaspooning. It's a bit of an industry quirk. Essentially, it's almost entirely single malt from one distillery, in this case, Ailsabay. But legally, they add a tiny, tiny amount, like a literal teaspoon of malt from another distillery.
Why do that?
Often for contractual reasons. It means it can't be sold as Ailsabay single malt, maybe because the distillery wants to control that branding. But it allows the independent bottler, like Little Brown Dog, to get their hands on the spirit and bottle it.
Gotcha. So it's basically Ailsabay, but technically a blended malt.
Huh.
And this one's first fill Oloroso sherry, cask strength, 56.8%.
Exactly. So still packing a punch, even as a blend, shows real care in selection across the board.
And we have to mention the gin again, the Aberdeenshire foraged gin. It's award-winning, isn't it?
It is. And what's cool is how they approach it. They talk about applying Scottish whiskey-making principles to gin.
Meaning focusing on quality ingredients, careful distillation.
Yeah, that kind of rigor. They seem a bit wary of gins that just slap a local label on without real substance. They position themselves as part of a community of Scottish distillers who are serious about the process, the provenance.
Elevating the gin craft, basically.
Seems like it. And their spirit of exploration, it goes even further. They've bottled a Calvados.
Right, the French apple brandy from the Drouin distillery.
Yeah, a proper Pays d'Auge Calvados, so double pot distilled, following strict rules. But the really unique thing is the maturation fully matured in a white port cask.
White port. That's really unusual for Calvados.
Yeah.
Usually it's French oak, maybe ex-cognac.
Exactly. White port tends to be lighter, maybe stone fruits, nutty notes.
So what would that do to the Calvados? Add a different kind of fruitiness. Complexity.
You'd think so. Maybe soften the apple note slightly, add layers. It just screams traditionally unconventional, doesn't it? That adventurous spirit again.
It really does.
Yeah.
And a couple of things really tie their whole approach together. We mentioned the geotagging for the gin.
But there's also the scan your dram QR code thing.
Ah, yes. Tell me more about that. That sounds really interesting for, people who want the details.
Totally. So scan the QR code on the bottle with your phone. For the gin, it gives you, 3 words, locations for the botanicals, like the exact spot they were picked.
Seriously.
That precise.
Yeah.
And for the whiskeys and rums, you get tons of data. Cask history, fermentation details, cask types, age, everything.
That's fantastic. That's transparency taken to another level. Really speaks to someone who wants to be properly informed.
It does, and it links back to that casks with character idea for the single casks. It's not just about age or distillery, it's about that specific cask being special. There has to be a reason to bottle it alone.
Right. It's a curated selection.
Definitely. And you see the little brown dog image everywhere in their stuff. It keeps that visual identity strong, reminds you of the origin story.
Okay, so wrapping this up, Little Brown Dog Spirits.
Yeah.
They're an independent bottler, definitely living up to that traditionally unconventional tag.
Yeah, huge respect for tradition, but a real drive to innovate, focus on single casks with character, amazing transparency.
And they're not afraid to step outside whiskey into gin, rum, even Calvados with unique finishes.
And as we saw, whisky.dk has a really good selection. So if you're curious, it's a practical place to actually find and try these bottles.
It's been a really fascinating look, actually. It makes you think, doesn't it, about the role these smaller independent players have.
Yeah, for a relatively small outfit to put out such a diverse, high-quality, interesting range, it says a lot about where spirits appreciation is right now.
Maybe this deep dive has sparked some curiosity for you listening, enough to perhaps track down a Little Brown Dog bottling and see what that philosophy tastes like. It leaves you pondering, I suppose. What does it really mean to balance tradition and unconventionality in a bottle? Something to think about next time you pour a dram.